What is going on, everyone? I hope you're all doing well. Today we're finally going to be getting a look at the PC port for The Last of Us Part 1. Sorry that I'm a little bit late to the game on this one. I was serving a 1-week suspension from YouTube, which was complete nonsense. I'll be doing a dedicated video talking about that in the very near future and kind of explaining what happened there, but that's why this video is a little bit late, but that's for another video. Today we'll be focusing on the PC port. There's been a lot of flack coming at this game since it launched. Thankfully, there's been some fixes and patches since then, which I'm currently on the latest version of that for all of the gameplay you're going to be seeing in this video. I didn't really touch it for the first few days that it was out, so I'm on version 1.0.1.5 with the latest NVIDIA driver, which is 531.41 on my RTX 4090. So take all of that into account. I'll talk about some of the performance issues and things that people have been talking about, and we'll get into all of it. But first, as I always like to do with these videos, let's get into the graphics options menu, which is quite extensive. So PC port quality-wise, in terms of the amount of options, 10 out of 10. Can't say anything bad about the sheer amount of options on hand here. We'll start off in display, where you can see I'm playing at 4K on my RTX 4090. We've got a sharpening slider here. We've got an FOV slider, which does not have like specific amounts or anything, but it's fine. It works. Oh wait, I realize I'm all the way at the bottom here. So let's start up at the top. So we've got borderless window or windowed, so there is no dedicated full screen mode. DirectX 12, it's becoming more and more common nowadays. And as you can see, I'm playing at 4K. You can also turn VSync off if you want to, which I have it off in the driver. It's always off, unlocked frame rate and all of that. So very nice to have all of that there. We've also got some various scaling modes. Now, I was playing at native 4K for all the video you're going to be seeing, but it also does have DLSS super resolution and AMD FSR2, as well as a high contrast mode if you wanted to utilize that. But nice to have DLSS and FSR to get the game running better for you guys if you're having any performance issues, which I wasn't having. I definitely could probably utilize DLSS and get over 100 frames per second, but I was fine with the 80 to 90 FPS or so I was getting here at native 4K maxed out, so no issues there. Coming back down to the bottom here, you can see we've got our FOV slider, camera shake, and some options which I've opted to disable: motion blur, chromatic aberration intensity, as well as film grain intensity, things that I just think make the game look worse, so I'm not using it. And I have gore on default. You can also toggle it to reduced, but I don't need to do that because I am not 5 years old. And there it is. So I've got the gore on entirely. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel the options. Do you want to apply the changes? No, I don't know. I don't know what I changed. I don't want to change anything. Graphics. Going into the graphics on here, I'm on the Ultra preset, which is just everything cranked up to the max, which is always nice sometimes when there's nothing extra to turn up, although sometimes I also do feel warm and fuzzy inside when there's something I can just turn up a little bit more for my naughty hardware. So we've got animation quality here up at the highest available that it goes. Nice that we have a little preview on the right-hand side here to sort of show you, what it's going to do. And when we come down to some other options, it'll actually give you a visual comparison to see what it's affecting from low, medium, high to ultra, and everything in the background. We've got everything separated into different sections here, which is nice, and there are tons of options. So for geometry settings, we've got your draw distance, dynamic object level of detail, characters, and environment, all LOD options there for the game geometry. We've also got various texture settings: dynamic object, texture quality, character, environment, visual effects, texture filtering, and texture sampling qualities. And again, we've got previews on the right for everything in there and explaining what they do and what it affects on your hardware as far as CPU, GPU, VRAM, all of that stuff. So fantastic. Love to see it. Want to see it in more games. The only thing this game really is missing is a benchmark. For lighting settings, we've got ambient shadow quality, direct shadow resolution, directional shadow distance, image-based lighting, spotlight shadows, point light shadow resolution, bounced lighting, screen space shadow quality, dynamic screen space shadows, contact shadow quality, screen space ambient occlusion with a subsection of ambient occlusion denoising quality, directional occlusion, and screen space cone tracing. No real-time ray tracing, though, in this, but damn good effects nonetheless. This game looks gorgeous. We also got reflections in here, so we've got standard SSR with various sub-options for reflection accuracy, reflection distance, and reflection quality for glossy textures. Real-time reflection quality, so we've got real-time reflections, but not ray tracing. and real-time shadow quality reflections, and all of it just looks phenomenal. Screen space, subsurface scattering, and refraction quality for multi-layered refractions. And then we've got some post effects down here for depth of field. You can do it for cinematics and gameplay or for depth of field. I'm actually going to change that to only cinematics for myself personally. That's how I would personally like to run it. So I did notice that in the game actually. So that's how I personally prefer to use it going forward. And the depth of field does look good in the cinematics, but it's just not needed in games. And motion blur I have off completely, or I did in the slider than the display. So we'll just turn it off there anyway, just to make sure it's all gone. We've also got bloom resolution, volumetric effects quality, and lens flares. Whew, that is a lot of options, folks. And on top of that, of course, you can go ahead and you can, customize loads of accessibility options. Naughty Dog are known for all of the different accessibility options like text-to-speech and like descriptive narrative, which will just like literally describe what's happening on screen. So you could pretty much play these games nearly blind if you needed to. So quite impressive, honestly, the accessibility stuff that Naughty Dog puts into their games, which they had on the console version. So it's not really a port attribute, but all of that stuff that they did for the PS5 version of The Last of Us Part 1 is carried into this PC version here. And speaking of performance, I really haven't had any major complaints. Stuttering and hitching wise, there were some traversal stutters and things where you can tell it was loading in from one area to the next, but for the most part, during gameplay, this was not an issue, and it wasn't, something that distracted from the gameplay majorly, like in Callisto Protocol or in Dead Space before it got a couple of patches. So it's not as bad as some of those games. It's still there, even with the lengthy shader compilation, which is unfortunate. They've got the shader compilation, and it's really caning, the CPU and everything. So it's a little unfortunate. There still is some hitches and micro stutters, but it totally doesn't detract from, really playing the game and enjoying it, especially if you're a dedicated PC gamer and you have not had a chance yet to experience The Last of Us and you've been wanting to. I can't imagine that the amount of little bit of hitches and stutters that do happen from time to time in this PC port are going to be enough to make you not want to play this game. I think they were absolutely fine. That being said, the system requirements are quite hefty on this. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the high CPU usage, which for me, honestly, that is not a complaint. That is a net positive in my personal opinion. This game seems to be scaling very well across multiple cores and threads from all of the reports that I've seen out there, and I have seen my 9900K getting fully utilized, and there's even reports of people using like 7950Xs, and this thing just caning every single thread available to it. So for me, I think that is a positive, because that means it's using all of the resources I have available to it so that it can play the game the best that it possibly can. And there were very few times where I found myself being CPU bound. There was like only one instance that I can really recall where my GPU was not fully pinned at 99%, which is what I want to see at all times. So if my GPU is at 99%, that tells me that I'm not being bottlenecked by my CPU or my VRAM or my system memory or my SSD or anything like that. I'm being strictly GPU bound, which means all of the other hardware is being fully utilized and nothing is being left to waste or being left on the table that I have inside of my system. So all of that to me is a positive. Now that does mean that it is extremely taxing, and it will leverage all of the hardware that you have to throw at it, and it should scale down to some lower end hardware as well. Now there were a lot of reports of the game crashing on launch, and those are all, anyone that's having any issues or whatever, I'm not trying to minimize that. Anyone that's having any issues with crashing or performance, those are real issues, and they definitely need to be addressed. And it seems like Iron Galaxy and or Naughty Dog have been on top of that since The Last of Us Part 1 released on PC, and I have no doubt that they will continue to update things, as they have definitely learned from their mistakes in the past. I mean, look at Batman Arkham Knight, one of the worst ports of all time. Then we got Uncharted earlier this year. Not a perfect launch. It had some issues with the mouse smoothing or mouse acceleration when it came out. Thankfully, they learned from that, and whatever they did to make sure that that game had good raw mouse input, they extended that over into The Last of Us Part 1 as well, realizing, PC gamers are not going to put up with that bullshit and deal with mouse acceleration. So, Last of Us Part 1 Day 1, they took care of that, and it's, you know, working as a game just should. I don't feel like they deserve a pat on the back for that, but I feel like we should at least acknowledge that they are growing as a PC port maker. So any feedback we can give them, I think, can just help them with further future PC ports they may be working on with different developers, or even just with Naughty Dog for Last of Us Part 2, or other Uncharted games could be coming down the pipeline if they continue to work with Naughty Dog for the PC ports. So there it is. Hopefully they can learn from their lessons and continue to patch this and optimize this. Because as I said, for me, I was getting like over 80 frames for the vast majority of it, and I think the visuals on this game are just absolutely breathtaking. Like one of the best looking games I have ever seen on PC, including a Diablo 4 recently. That game also looked excellent, but I know this game is supposed to be like, everyone's like, oh, it's a remastered. No, this is a full-on fucking remake into The Last of Us 2 engine, and I think The Last of Us Part 1 looks great. I don't feel the need to personally really spend like $70 on a PS5 copy and all that stuff, because I played The Last of Us 1 several times already, and I still need to finish The Last of Us Part 2, and after having just recently watched the HBO show, I just feel like I'm sort of playing through a lot of the same beats, so there's really not a whole lot of reason for me to stick around and play this game, except the visuals are stunning, and it is the best that The Last of Us has ever looked. It has never looked this good on the PS3, the PS4, the PS4 Pro, or the PS5. It looks the best on the PC. We ended up waiting like a fucking decade to get the game, but now it's here, and it's the best version of the game. Full stop, folks. So finally, PC gamers are able to enjoy it. Let me know what you've been thinking of Last of Us Part 1 down in the comments below. And, you know, if you're on a lower end system and you're concerned about that, check out some other benchmark videos. Wait for some patches. Wait for a sale. There's no need to really jump out there and grab this game day one, which has been cracked already. By the way, it was cracked day one. But definitely support these developers and, you know, grab this and, you know, pay for it. And so we can get more Sony exclusives in the future. And I think it's overall a good quality port, honestly. Maybe day one it was a little rough and shoddy, but now even just a few days after, I had a great experience. And that might be just me. Maybe other people are still having issues, but I can only report on the experience that I'm having and at least acknowledge the other ones that are out there in the Steam reviews. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and enjoy my weekend, and I hope you guys do as well. And I'll catch you next time for another video. Peace.